As Orientica created a better version of Louis Vuitton's imagination, let's review it and find out. Hey, what's up guys? Fragrance Hunter here and welcome back to the channel where I upload weekly fragrance content, so you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below and also make sure to follow me over on my Instagram page. So today we are reviewing the newest fragrance from the house of Orientica, who I believe is a Middle Eastern house as well and do create a lot of inspired by fragrances, and I'm actually a big fan of them from the ones that I own because they are usually very high quality and beast mode fragrances that these guys put out. But today we are looking at exclusive Azure Fantasy, which I believe is part of their luxurious line, which may be a little bit more expensive than their other line. And you can just tell by looking at this bottle alone, this looks expensive. And also take a look at the bottle as well real quick. You can tell what this is inspired by, of course, Louis Vuitton's imagination. So for anybody out there that loves imagination, you're gonna wanna check this out. I also do wanna shout out Orientica for sending Azure Fantasy over for review, but as we know, I'm gonna keep it completely honest with you guys. If I like the fragrance, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And I'm gonna make that clear. Let's go with some information now. Azure Fantasy was released in 2024. It just recently came out. For the retail price, only size these come in, which is 80 ml for $225. Now, I know that is very expensive. It's only $100 less than Louis Vuitton's imagination. However, that is at retail. Orientica fragrances do usually hit discounters much cheaper than that. So if you want to check this out, maybe hold out for a while until they hit discounters and then pick up a bottle. The concentration with this one is actually an extrait de parfum, so you are getting the highest of perfume oils used in fragrances, even higher than imagination, which is actually an eau de parfum. And that's another thing I can't wait to touch on a little bit later in the review. Now, for the perfumer, I did do some research, came up short. I'm not sure who created Azure Fantasy, and that's usually the case with these Middle Eastern houses. They never disclose who the perfumer was. With all the information out of the way, let's look at the packaging and presentation you get with Azure Fantasy now. Looking at the box, man, I gotta say this is absolutely gorgeous in this kind of Tiffany blue color, and this is actually embossed. It has this kind of a texture to it, which is fantastic. Of course, Orientica Azure Fantasy Extrait de Parfum, a luxury collection. Nothing on the bottom, nothing on the sides or the top. On the back, you do have your barcode and batch code to authenticate your product to see when it was produced, and these are made in the UAE. And it opens up like so with this nice kind of felt insert. Very, very nice attention to detail with the box. Let's look at the bottle now. Now, looking at the bottle, it resembles the box perfectly with the same kind of pattern going on. That is actually kind of raised off of the glass, which is nice. You have this kind of pearl logo on the front as well in that Tiffany blue color scheme. On the bottom, you do have your sticker with this nice metal plaque, which is awesome. Nothing on the back, nothing on top of the cap. The cap is actually pretty weighted. I think this is metal. And then of course the atomizers, and these do click into place very snugly. In the top, you have bergamot, ginger, mint, and nutmeg. In the mid, you have jasmine, lily of the valley, and geranium. And in the base, you have ambergris, gaiac wood, and musk. And this will be classified as a fresh citrus. So let's spray this and test out these atomizers. Honestly, disappointing atomizers right there, guys. It doesn't spray the most juice, but obviously that's not a deal breaker or not. So let's go ahead and remind myself of this new Azure Fantasy. So right away when I smell this, I picture imagination immediately, guys. And I'm a huge fan of obviously Louis Vuitton as a house. Louis Vuitton is my favorite designer house of all time. As you can see, I own so many bottles over there. Imagination is one of the best freshies from them and is getting so much hype lately. So of course, these fragrance houses are going to make their take on that DNA, and it's without a doubt recognizable in this. Even though it's not a one-on-one clone, it's extremely, extremely close, guys. I know Imagination uses this citrus called citron, which is kind of like a sweet citrus. This, however, uses a bergamot that's very crisp, but you also do get a heavy, and I mean heavy dose of mint in this opening. ultra refreshing, very, very green, but you also get this very zesty, kind of sparkling, slightly spicy ginger note. I would say in the opening, the ginger and the mint are the two most dominant notes playing a factor in this beautiful opening that's taking over right away. I know Imagination is heavy on ginger, so you're still getting that very identical ginger in Azure Fantasy. And for all my ginger lovers out there, you're gonna absolutely love this. Now, I know for me, I never used to like ginger, like maybe a few years ago, but I've grown to love ginger in fragrances and has become one of my favorite kind of spicy, zesty notes. And this is actually the first fragrance in my collection that is very similar to Imagination. I don't know of any other fragrances at this time. There might be some other like identical clones, but when it comes to fragrances in general, this is the only one I have that comes close to Imagination in scent profile. And I don't believe anybody else has reviewed this yet, so I'm glad I'm able to bring it to you guys' attention, because this is something you're gonna wanna check out once possibly it gets discounted and stuff like that, because it is expensive. Now, making our way into the mid of Azure Fantasy is when it starts to become pretty floral. I know in Imagination the floral is mostly from the neroli, and here, however, it replaces the neroli with jasmine and lily of the valley, which I actually prefer. I'm not the biggest fan of neroli as a floral. It's probably one of my least favorite floral notes, but I do love jasmine, and you're gonna get this nice kind of fresh, green, earthy jasmine going on that's not too like powdery, which I can't stand when florals turn powdery to me. So thankfully that's not the case. You do have that geranium listed as well, but there's no kind of rosy aspects about this at all. Just the white florals with the lily and the jasmine bring a nice kind of classy, sophisticated touch. And I guess you need to add some white florals into this scent profile to get that Imagination DNA, and that's what they did. They just did it a little bit different. And mind you, as this fragrance is transitioning, the ginger and that mint aren't going anywhere, just more notes are starting to come through and make it a little bit more complex. Because once we do make our way into the base of Azure Fantasy, you do have that ambergris listed, which ambergris is a kind of salty, animalic note. I'm honestly not getting any ambergris in here. However, I am getting ambroxan, which is somewhat of a synthetic molecule based off of ambergris. It's like a very modern, musky, slightly woody accord used in a lot of masculine fragrances as well. And Imagination has a heavy dose of ambroxan in that base, alongside that woody Gaiac wood, which is similar to Imagination. The only thing missing from the base of here from Imagination is that tea note. But what I think is going on is Orientica used that mint note maybe as a replacement to the tea, because the mint from that opening is still lingering as it makes its way into the base. And I believe that was the substitute. And I actually kind of really dig the way Orientica came up with this fragrance, because that mint in here is very, very well done. And it's hard for me to say if I actually prefer Azure Fantasy over Imagination, because it kind of does hurt being a huge Louis Vuitton fan with their fragrances and a huge Jacques Cavallier fan, who's the in-house perfumer for Louis Vuitton, who made Imagination. So I wouldn't necessarily say I prefer this, but I do like the slight twist on that very iconic now Imagination scent profile. I will say though, I am very, very impressed on how luxurious this fragrance actually smells. It smells extremely high quality. I don't know if that's because this is part of their luxury line, but I can tell the difference between their other lines, because those ones could come across a little bit synthetic. This, however, does smell very, very natural. At the end of the day, it should be in an over $200 retail priced fragrance. Now for the best seasons to rock Azure Fantasy, I'm wearing this bad boy in the fall, spring, and summer, not necessarily the winter time, even though at the end of the day, it could be very, very versatile. But for me, primarily in like the high heat springs and summers, maybe like a fall kind of a nice day out. But since it's so bright, fresh, and uplifting, I think it will wear best in like the spring and summer at the end of the day. For occasion though, this is versatile. It's the kind of fragrance scent profile you can wear dressed down and you can wear dressed up easily without any problems whatsoever. Same with Louis Vuitton's Imagination. Now for gender, I've always said like Imagination is part of the men's line. However, Imagination is the most unisex from that line. I can see a woman wearing Imagination perfectly. Same goes for this. This is a very, very unisex fragrance. And I think Orientica targeted this as unisex Heck, even looking at the bottle is a little bit more feminine, so both a man and a woman can wear this fragrance easily. It doesn't lean more towards one side or the other, just kind of straight down the middle, unisex. For age groups as well, I could see a younger person wearing this, I could see an older person wearing this. So if you're a teenager, you got money, you want to smell very, very good, you can pull this off. But if also you're a little bit more mature, you can absolutely pull it off as well. So age group doesn't really matter for a fragrance such as this. Wrapping the review off talking on the performance of Azure Fantasy. Now, I know Imagination gets a lot of hate in the community. People are saying it doesn't perform good, etc., etc. For me though, from my experience, Imagination is actually one of the better performer freshies from Louis Vuitton, which still doesn't mean it's a beast. This though, I actually did get maybe slightly better performance than Imagination, which is good. When it comes to the longevity, I got around maybe that 8 to 10 hour mark. So I was thoroughly impressed with the performance from this as far as like the longevity went. Because with Imagination, I think I maybe get around 6 to 8. So this is slightly better, lasts a little bit longer. And I would hope so, being in the Extrait de Parfum, you kind of do expect some good longevity from your fragrance. If you're an Imagination fan, which I know a lot of you guys are, and you thought maybe the performance was a little bit lackluster, then this is going to be the fragrance for you without a doubt. And for the projection, I got about moderate projection from my testing, meaning it wasn't like a soft projector where it's just like a skin scent, but it also wasn't something that's extremely loud and room filling. However, when you walk around, people are gonna smell you. And I actually have worn this one quite a bit since getting a bottle of it. This was actually even my scent of the day yesterday at the time of the recording. So I'm a big fan of this stuff. I've gotten to know it, I've gotten to know the performance, and have gotten a few compliments as well. And like I said, people will smell you for maybe around the first 4 hours or so. It does project very nicely around. And just the sillage behind you when you're walking is gonna leave this nice kind of refreshing, minty, sparkling ginger kind of scent trail behind you. And people will probably almost break their neck when you walk by and see who the heck smells like that. At the end of the day, just an awesome take on the Imagination scent profile. And I have seen a few people talk about this one and never mentioned Imagination, but this is without a doubt very, very similar and inspired by Imagination. I hope once this one starts to become readily available and a little bit cheaper, a lot of you guys are able to get your nose on it. That's gonna do it for my review. Let me know down below if you tried anything from the house of Orientica. I know they do have a bunch of good stuff from them. And if there's something you want me to check out, leave a comment down below and I'll hopefully review it. Besides that though, leave a like, subscribe if you guys haven't already, and you already know I'll see you all be back here in my next upload. Take care, everybody.